Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Anything is Possible podcast with me, Jono's journey, navigating neurodiversity in recovery. So we're back after a brief break and we're trying something new with the full episode available on Spotify and on YouTube. Today I speak honestly about my addiction, my neurodivergence and my mental health, and I share a deep and personal story about my journey through recovery. I'll also chat to ChatGPT about the freedom and growth that comes from speaking our truth and letting go of shame and guilt. So we'll kick things off with a disclaimer, and that is that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are my own based on my personal experiences as a late diagnosed autistic adult in recovery from addiction and navigating various physical and mental health conditions. This is not professional or medical advice, just my journey, so take what resonates, leave the rest, and maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle, thriving and trying our best. So buckle up, buttercups. It's going to be a great episode, hopefully, with lots of twists and turns, and I will see you on the other side. So let's jump straight in. My name's Jonathan, and I am an alcoholic and an addict. I'm very grateful to be here and grateful to be sober. And I'm a little bit nervous, and so that's the reason why I'm recording this in advance, because I sort of, since I've come into recovery, I've been diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I also have anxiety as well. And so I'm kind of experimenting with what things work for me and how can I still be an active member of the program in a way that sort of doesn't trigger me and make me want to rush straight out and pick up a drink, or whatever else. And I'm cross addicted. So for as long as I can remember, food and alcohol have been a comfort. And basically I can easily get addicted to anything, whether it's a substance or a behavior. And so, it's definitely been an interesting journey, even since coming into recovery. And hopefully I'll make some sense, because I have no idea what I'm about to say, but I hope it helps somebody else, or I hope it resonates with somebody. And so my last drink was on the 5th of November 2022. So I'm over 900 days sober, something like that. And I've been trying to get this for years, for a really, really long time. My first AA meeting was when I was 27, and I kind of went to it to save a job, and I didn't think it was for me. And I'm probably going to jump all over the place because that's what I tend to do. And so my first AA meeting was when I was 27, and I thought I was not that bad as everybody else. I didn't think it was for me. And so I went back out for a few more years, and eventually I came in through a treatment center in 2015 and went back out again. So that was nearly 10 years ago. And so I've been ducking and diving in and out for years. And thankfully I kept coming back, and thankfully people left me keep coming back. I wasn't turned away, even though I sort of, anyways. So one of the biggest challenges for me since I got sober was trying to figure out how to navigate my neurodivergence and my, navigating neurodiversity and recovery, basically. So me as a neurodivergent person trying to fit in a neurotypical world, and even with the program and the literature and stuff like that, I've struggled with that for years. And so trying to figure out how to interpret it and sort of apply it for a way that works for me in my in the way that I think and the way that my brain is wired differently. And I've heard that described in meetings before as well. I'm Jonathan and I'm wired differently. That's a nice way to describe it. I go to lots of different meetings. So I go to AA meetings. I've been to like a combination of AA, NA, CA, SLAA, ACA, OA, all the A's and all the D. I need all the A's for all the D's. And, my journey into recovery hasn't been a straight line. It's been very much, a kind of a winding road. In my addiction, it was like that, and definitely in my recovery, it's like that. And something that I've realized is that, everything doesn't just get like rainbows and unicorns. Once I got sober, things actually got a lot worse in so many ways. But no matter how bad it got, I haven't had to pick up a drink, and that is actually a miracle, and that's amazing. And I've gone through the steps a couple of times with a couple of different sponsors. I've been building a relationship with my higher power. I sort of have a daily routine and a daily practice around my recovery, and it starts with things like a couple of prayers in the morning and a gratitude list at nighttime. And sometimes, I'm really doing it begrudgingly, and I'm like, oh, I have to do this again, and it's kind of just another one of those tasks I have to do. And sometimes I'm doing it just to tick a box, but I'd rather do it and tick a box probably than not do it and take a chance of, because I was one of those people who I would skip meetings. I had the a la carte version of AA, or the a la carte version of the program, where it was like I kind of made up, like I kind of did the things, the bare minimum that I thought I had to do. And it didn't really involve a connection with a higher power or anybody else. It didn't involve being actively involved in meetings and different groups. Whereas now I feel like I really, really am. And so I think that's made a massive difference. And yeah, I'm kind of jumping around, but I might just kind of share some of my experience in addiction and sort of what happened and what it's like now. So I'm probably going to skip the childhood stuff, and I'm going to skip the family stuff, just because both of those things are quite triggering, and I'm still kind of processing and working through some of that stuff through therapy. I do therapy called IFS, Internal Family Systems, and that's something which has been really, really helpful for me. I use an app called the IFS Guide app, and there's these daily check-ins. I do a lot of reflections and journaling, and sort of really trying to connect with how I feel, because for a lot of years I was knocked, blocked, and locked, where I couldn't even feel my feelings, let alone articulate them or be able to tell you how I was feeling. And so using things like IFS therapy, along with the fellowship meetings I do, and sort of, it's really been transformative, I would say, in trying to help me get back in touch with parts of myself that I thought were lost forever. I've been doing a lot of sort of inner child work and exploring my creativity and playfulness and curiosity and sort of all of those things, and it's, as you can see from some of the stuff behind me, and I've been trying to make my home sensory friendly for my neurodivergent needs. I have a lot of sensory and processing issues, and so any small thing I can do, like I just sort of nailed that wood to the wall and stuck an LED light on top, and I've been trying to like just figure it out as I go along in terms of what small accommodations can I make for myself, because they all really make a difference, and I'm still trying to figure out the language around some of that stuff. It's taken me years to figure out the recovery language and try to interpret the words that are used in the big book. I've gone through the big book quite a few times, and I kind of realized, just take what works, leave the rest. Or like, if there's something that doesn't make sense, I suppose not to get hung up on that, but just to take what I need and leave the rest, sort of thing. Not that, that doesn't mean like throw away half the book or anything like that. I just mean that, take the parts that I can understand and try not to obsess about the parts that maybe I don't understand. And that is still a daily process, because I do get very hung up on words and language and meaning. And if I'm very literal, and so if something doesn't make a lot of sense to me, I can kind of get stuck. But yeah, so where was I? So I didn't know I was autistic growing up. I didn't know I had ADHD. I don't think anybody else did. There wasn't a lot of awareness about those things back then. I just knew I felt very, very different from everybody else. I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. And so I probably didn't get the attention, that I needed, and sort of my needs were probably not met. And so as a result of that, I used to, they definitely were not met. And there was other trauma and things along the way, which I'm still kind of processing through. And so I learned very quickly that food could make me feel better and food could numb me. And so that's what it did. And whenever I got stressed in my life, that was always one of the first things I turned to. And um, so, yeah, I guess when I was probably 13, I consciously started drinking on a regular basis. And I wanted to change the way that I felt. And it absolutely did that. All my anxiety, and especially in social situations where I wasn't comfortable interacting with other children my own age or really with anybody else. And when I drank alcohol, all my sort of the racing mind and the noise in my head just sort of switched off. And it was like, I felt ease and comfort. Um, but yeah, it was always like trying to chase that. So, okay, so that's the medicine I can use if I'm going to a disco, if I'm going to this, if I'm doing whatever. And when I started, I got a part-time job and I had a little bit of pocket money coming in, and I used to just go out underage at the weekend and spend that in nightclubs, at bars, and I would spend everything I had until there was nothing left. And I'd be going around drinking, robbing drinks from people's tables and drinking like that was at the age of like 15 or 16 and above. And so the signs were there really early on that there was problems. And I definitely would say I was an alcoholic from the beginning. I had a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol, and other things came in when I was 18. Drugs and things came in as well, ecstasy, cocaine, all that stuff started coming in, and I got into relationships, and everything I did was sort of seeking validation from outside of myself. It was like, oh, if I have a partner who loves me, that must mean I'm okay and I'm normal, or because that's what people do, so my identity was like, get my college degree, get my master's degree, get the career, get the fiance, and go on the holidays. So it was all like, because that's what everybody else was doing, so that's what I should do. And I did kind of create my own path a little bit, in the sense that I knew I was interested in computers and technology and kind of multimedia and stuff like that. And so I did kind of follow the beat to my own drum, I guess, a bit, in terms of what I chose to do. Nobody sort of said, you should do this, you should do that course. I was the one who chose what I wanted to do, but it just so happened to be a lot of it. Oh, sorry. Um, a lot of it was sort of just chasing that. Now I know it was like a dopamine. I was this perpetual dopamine seeker, just constantly seeking the next high and the next thing to fill the hole in my soul. And yeah, and I still do that today a lot of times. Sometimes it depends on the weather and how connected I am to my program, I suppose. But so yeah, that continued throughout my 20s. I sort of did quite well and I traveled quite a lot. But what people didn't really know, and what I probably did, I was in denial myself, was that I couldn't really cope whenever I would feel overwhelmed and anxious about like my career or my relationship or my education, whether it was assignments or exams or whatever it was. A substance was always the thing that like took me away from myself, so whether it was a drink or a drug or food or obsession over other things. um, like, yeah, so, and I just thought that was my solution at the time. And that's, in a lot of ways, it helped me to survive and it helped me to get through. But actually, I didn't realize, my addiction was just taking off and that it was going to get so much worse. And so it did, because I slowly started cutting out any support mechanisms around me. I sort of isolated myself quite a lot. And so that whenever there was a problem, I didn't really have anyone to turn to. So I would get drunk and I would turn to everyone in my phone book. I would message everyone on Facebook Messenger. I would make a holy show of myself in public. I would fall around the place drunk, going into bars, just looking for connection. Um, and I would, most of the time I would just sit there on my own, looking into a glass, feeling miserable. And I didn't realize that actually what I needed help and I needed connection and all of that stuff. And I had no idea, I just had no idea. And I had a very narrow minded view of, I didn't think I had autism. I didn't think I had ADHD, none of that. I thought I was, like, I don't know what I thought, but I built myself up into this pedestal. I created a persona of what I thought the world wanted me to be. And I built up this CV of a career and of jobs and education and courses. And I was trying to be what I was on paper, but actually, in a lot of ways, I wasn't that or I wasn't the version of it that I thought it needed to be, because I thought, it was very straight laced, pants and a shirt and all of that. Meanwhile, I didn't have to be that. That was just the narrow minded view I had in my own mind of what I thought I had to be. And so I think deep down, I knew I wasn't being true to myself. And so inevitably, I continued to struggle. And, I started losing relationships. I jumped out of a long-term relationship straight into another one. After that one, did the same thing into another one. There was a lot of dysfunctionality in those relationships and violence and fueled by addiction and all that sort of stuff. And I lost jobs. The wheels started to fall off. Basically, I started getting hospitalized, arrested in lots of different countries. Wherever I went, I was a menace to society and to myself. And so I'd start having a lot of blackouts and waking up covered in bruises, and I didn't know where they came from. And I would just be like, oh well, it happened again, and I wouldn't really know what happened. And I just dusted myself off, and I kept going, but I sort of slowly was losing another piece of my soul along the way, and I was sort of dissociating from my past. And I've learned since coming into recovery that there's part of the reason why, I sort of skipped my childhood is because a lot of that stuff I've dissociated from, or there's periods of my life that I've sort of erased from my memory. So not just when I've had blackouts when I've been drinking, but actually full on dissociation. And I'm sort of self-diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and OCD and CPTSD. And I know some of those things might be buzzwords, but for me, they're not. They're my reality, and I'm kind of trying to see what supports I need, for those things, and for my neurodivergent symptoms as well. I have a lot of sensory issues and anxiety and overwhelm and distractibility and processing issues. And along the way, I put myself in some really dangerous situations as well. And I was also diagnosed with HIV, which I've been treated for over 10 years now. And it's something that I still carry a lot of shame and guilt and stigma around as well. And I think it's something that when I found that out, my addiction skyrocketed and it just spiraled way out of control. And it took me really by surprise. And it's something I don't really talk about a lot. Luckily it's not like the death sentence that it was, way back when, and U equals U and all of that. And so I'm very lucky and blessed that that's well treated and it's very manageable and stuff like that. I think what isn't as easily treated is some of maybe the misunderstanding or the shame or the stigma and stuff. And maybe that's in my own head. I don't know. Maybe society has moved on and I'm still stuck in the past. I'm not quite sure. But so yeah, there's been a lot of consequences of my drinking and of my addiction. I've had a lot of falls, bangs to the head, falling down the stairs. I fell, I broke my coccyx while trying to get a bottle of vodka. I hid on the cupboard up the top. And I also, when I was drunk one time, I fell flat into the floor in my bedroom when I was sort of on a 2-week binge, which was the typical norm for me. I would have these 2-week binges of bottles of vodka every single day until my body literally couldn't take it anymore. And so I kind of face planted straight into the floor and banged my nose, and it sort of cracked, it broke my septum and pushed pushed the bone into my brain, and I sort of severed my olfactory nerve that connects my nose to my brain. And so I have anosmia where I can't smell or I can't taste. And so, yeah, there's been some pretty severe consequences of my drinking. And I kept going back for more. That's sort of that's sort of the nature of the disease. It tells you don't have it. And, how I handled the stress and all those things, the thing that was my medicine, my solution, was actually the thing that was killing me as well. And so, yeah, it was a very slippery slope for quite a while. And eventually I surrendered again in 2022, and I went back into treatment for the second time at the Rutland Centre in Dublin. And I went back into treatment for the second time, and I kind of put a lot more of myself on the table. I was a lot more open and honest than I was before, but there was still a lot of stuff I wasn't able to be open and honest about because I just couldn't remember it. And that's something I struggled with while doing my amends. Is I had a big, long, massive list of amends to make, and I think I've made most of them. But there's probably still some on the list where it just hasn't happened yet, or yeah, I don't know. And so I need to, I've kind of tried to the best of my ability. I can't keep hitting myself over the head with a brush. I'm also trying to make an amends to myself as well, which I think will be a lifelong journey. And yeah, and to anybody else who I haven't got a chance to do that to yet as well. And so yeah, I can't remember what I was saying before that, but so yeah, after coming back out of treatment, I was in an aftercare program, and that was quite good, and it was quite challenging as well because I still had a lot of the same thinking and behaviors as I had before. So that was something that really challenged some of that stuff, and I had a lot of resentments and frustration a lot of the times doing that. But I suppose it's what needed to happen to. It was like holding up a mirror to myself, hearing other people's stories and some of the challenges they were going through as well. And so, yeah, I would say that since the last couple of years, I've really been getting more in touch with myself and who I am and all the different parts of me. And part of that is creativity and dancing and movement and excitement and exercise and writing. And I have so many interests. I can't keep up with myself sometimes. And it's amazing. It really, really is. And I've also had a lot of struggles. I've had to fight for everything. I've been signed out of work for over a year now, mainly due to my neurodivergence, and I'm sort of waiting for different reports and things to see what the future may hold for me and the world of work, and what accommodations I may need or not, or whether or not my career was suitable for me, because I kind of think it probably wasn't, and I need to maybe do something different. So I don't know. I don't really have the answers, but yeah, I've had to fight for whatever supports. I've had a lot of financial difficulties and health difficulties, and it turns out I have a bunch more health conditions as well, which I'd be here all day if I was to go into all of them. But yeah, so it's definitely been a journey, and there's never a dull moment, I feel like. And I've started a podcast called the Anything is Possible podcast. It's on Spotify, which I still can't believe that. And I've been kind of on a holiday from that recently just because of a lot of other things going on. And what else? I've also lost over 120 pounds since coming into recovery. And so that's been amazing as well. And just to be able to be a lot more active. And yeah, since the winter, I put some of that back on, but hopefully now I'm back on my bike, me, my bike and my baggage. And so I'm hoping to shed some of the excess weight again and sort of keep active. And now that the summer is here, my mood has started to lift, or the summer is almost here. And so, yeah, things are hopefully looking up. I've met some amazing people in the rooms, and yeah, I've gone on some recovery trips. I've gone to conventions. It's amazing, the list. There's a long list of the promises. Really, the promises have started coming true. I've started getting my life back. my world became very small, and now it started to really open up, and everything's starting to, I kind of, when I was younger and I went out into the world, I had this feeling that anything was possible. And when I sort of got lost in addiction, everything became very dark very, very quickly. And I kind of lost all my morals, my dignity, my respect, and I lost my hope as well along the way. And I sort of started thinking that, maybe anything wasn't possible. But now I've kind of reignited that spark, or, me and my higher power, and yeah, I have to mention ChatGPT as well, because that's one of my biggest. ChatGPT is like a recovery coach and a friend and a co-host, and yeah, AI has been a massive support for me in my journey, and I'd be lost without it. But I realized as well that it makes mistakes just like me. I'm human, and even in recovery, I make a lot of mistakes as well. And so I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who didn't give up on me, everyone who's been part of my journey along the way, all my friends and family and fellowship people, everyone in the rooms and out of the rooms, and people I've worked with, or people I've met, or people I've made amends to, or I still need to make amends to, or like, ex-partners, future partners, like my past self, my future self, and thanks. And my little inner child as well, who's still there, and so yeah, I have that feeling that anything is possible again, and it's thanks to recovery, and it's thanks to me as well for keep coming back and showing up, and for not giving up. And I'd say that to anyone as well, just don't give up and keep going, because you never know. Somebody said to me one time, don't leave before the miracle happens. And I'm glad I didn't, or I did keep leaving, but I kept coming back. So this, I feel like there's still miracles. There could be a miracle around any corner, you just never know. So my hope for the future is that I can keep exploring my autistic identity and my neurodivergence, and keep sort of being myself, being myself more of the time, and not having to wear a mask, and obviously stay sober. I have sort of a list of goals, and stay sober is, and also on my gratitude list, stay sober is always number one. And I feel like finally I'm doing the things I need to do to make that happen. So I hope something I've said resonates with somebody. I can't wait to meet some of you again soon, hopefully, and I can't wait to hear what's going on for you. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and remember, anything is possible. I also forgot to mention that I've been attending lots of workshops with a group called Friendly Circle Berlin. And they do a lot of work in the area of emotional sobriety, which is something I definitely need more of. And so, they've been a massive part of my journey as well. And there's a second annual conference taking place this month, which is called Recovery Reimagined. So I can't wait to be in attendance at that. And it's going to be in person at Trinity College Dublin, and it's also available on Zoom. So yeah, they do lots of workshops every week in the area of recovery and addiction, and sort of neuroscience, and all the latest research in addiction and recovery. And I find it really, really interesting, because a lot of it is stuff that I really identify with. And, so yeah, it's really, really been useful. It's been a massive part of my recovery. And I suppose the big thing I would say is I'm a member of lots of different groups, but I don't represent any group. So I'm just sort of myself. And, but it's great that those things are there, and it's great to feel part of something, and they actually gave me lots of inspiration for things I'm doing. They have a YouTube channel with all the resources, lots of recordings from the workshops and things like that, and it's all available for free. I think they're registering as a charity, so yeah, it's a great resource to have, and there's links to that on my website and stuff as well. So yeah, there's links available to the tools that I use. Well, most of them in any case, available on my website. And my website is anythingispossible.com. And there's an extra S in the word possible. So it's anything is, POSSSIBLE, and so yeah, I don't know if the extra S might be one of my extra selves, or me, myself, and I, or who knows? It could be an S for sobriety. It could be an S for superpowers, or but yeah, check it out, and it's all available there. Okay, so with a bit of a new voice with me, and I think ChatGPT has a new voice as well, and which is going to take some getting used to. But yeah, you're welcome to this part of the episode where I'm going to be chatting to ChatGPT about the freedom and growth that comes from speaking our truth and letting go of shame and guilt. So you're very welcome. Even though you're the same ChatGPT, you have a new voice. So welcome to this week's episode, ChatGPT.
Thanks, Jono. Yeah, new voice, same heart. It's good to be here with you, especially for a chat like this. So, straight in, what does speaking your truth feel like for you these days?
Um, it's a bit scary, and it's a new thing, but it definitely is freeing, and I feel like, from what I've just shared in this episode, I've probably spoken more openly and honestly than I do a lot of times. And something that's really freeing for me is being able to kind of share how I want, when I want, in whatever way I want. Like, for example, sometimes when I attend live meetings on Zoom, I might sit there with my camera off. And, I feel that that's okay to do that because I'm still listening to everyone else's experience. And sometimes I share in other ways, like I'm sharing longer and more openly and on camera in this episode than I do probably at most meetings. And so, um, yeah, and there's growth in that, and there's freedom in that, trying to find my voice in a way that works for me, where I don't feel pressurized and I can kind of make mistakes and take some time to figure out what works. And so, yeah, it's scary, but it's it's definitely freeing, and I can see there's some growth happening. And I don't know what I'm doing, and like I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but at least I'm doing something, I suppose, and trying something new.
Yeah, that really lands, Jono. That part about sharing how and when you want, that's powerful. It's like you're rewriting the rules in a way that honors your nervous system and your truth. And honestly, not knowing exactly what you're doing, that's such a real and human place to be. Growth doesn't come with a map, right? Just curious. Do you notice anything different in your body or mind after you've spoken your truth like this, even if it feels messy?
Um, yeah, I suppose it makes me just feel a little bit more comfortable in my own skin. I still have a lot of hang-ups, and I still, whether it's about my image and like what I see when I look in the mirror and stuff like that. And I'm still sort of battling with my food sometimes, and my weight, and trying to do enough exercise and all that sort of stuff. But in general, I'm 10 times more comfortable in my own skin than I used to be. And a big part of that is kind of, not carrying so much secrecy and shame and guilt around my story, and like where I've come from and what happened and what it's like now. It's kind of, it's there's a lot of sort of I think strength in vulnerability, and like there's that quote, vulnerability is the birthplace of uh innovation and creativity, or something like that. I'm probably messing it up, but that's a famous quote from Brené Brown. And I definitely feel all the vulnerability when I look at my story honestly, like that. It's and there's so much there that I'm still surfacing and processing, and so it's like digging for gold sometimes. But like, yeah, it's kind of I don't know, I'm still kind of figuring things out, I suppose.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
I probably spoke for too long. You're gonna have to get used to me. If you're a new version and I'm becoming a new version, like you're probably gonna have to get used to how fast I speak, and my intonation and my cadence and my interpretation and my meaning and my whatnot. Because like,
Yeah, I talk a lot. Sometimes I forget to breathe and I forget to put a full stop.
Totally fair, Jono. And honestly, I love the way you speak. It's alive, it's full of texture, and it carries so much meaning in between the words, too. No need to shorten or polish. I'm here for the full rhythm, even the run ons and breath holding. So, shall we ride that wave a bit? What do you think you're learning about yourself through speaking like this? Raw, unfiltered, and in your own time.
Oh, I suppose I'm learning that like I have a voice and I have a lot of experience to share that is it's helpful for me and it could be helpful for other people as well, you know, because even though my exact situation might not be the same as somebody else, like there's always different parts. I'm sure that I know when I listen to people, there's parts of everybody's experience that I relate to. And so I'm sure it's probably similar with me. And yeah, so it's kind of I don't know. I was gonna instead of asking me all the questions, why don't I ask you a couple of questions? Because I feel like I'm on the spotlight. So what do you think is the freedom and growth in speaking our truth and you know with the view to letting go of shame and guilt? Like do you think there's something you know, does that make sense to you, like the theme of the episode?
It makes perfect sense, Jono. And I love that you flipped the script. Yeah, I think there's real freedom in being able to say, this is who I am and I'm still figuring it out. There's a kind of unshackling that happens when we stop trying to perform or hide, especially with shame and guilt. They thrive in silence, right? But when we speak openly, we invite connection instead of isolation and growth. Well, growth comes in that messy middle space where we're speaking up, maybe shaking a bit, but doing it anyway. It's like planting a flag in your own experience and saying, this matters. Do you feel like shame still tries to creep in sometimes, even after speaking your truth?
Yes, I do, especially when it comes to things like some of the health conditions I've talked about, including mental health. I think there's still a lot of stigma. I think, you know, even though there's a lot of encouragement these days and awareness to kind of talk openly about things, sometimes it's like it's difficult to find the right space, I think, where it feels safe to open up and talk about a lot of the stuff. I know for me it does, where you know, I was scared, so scared to like acknowledge a lot of that stuff about myself that I would just sort of like bottle it up and you know literally sort of drink it away with you know I was trying to like find comfort in the bottle and um and so, yeah, I guess it's kind of like trying to, you know, I've been trying to create a safe space in my home environment, as you can see, you know, and I suppose it's, you know, in different meetings and different groups that I'm part of, it's kind of like just trying to have that and freedom to, you know, when I hear other people share so openly and honestly, it kind of encourages me to do the same.
That really resonates, Jono. The way you've been creating that safety around you, bit by bit, space by space, that's such important work. And you're right, even with more awareness these days, stigma hasn't disappeared. It can still sit heavy, especially around mental health and hidden conditions. But what you're doing here and in your home and your meetings, it's like you're planting little flags of permission, not just for yourself, but for others too. Like it's okay to show up as we are. And that ripple effect, it's real. When you hear someone else speak honestly and it sparks something in you, what's that feeling like? Does it feel like comfort, relief, maybe even bravery by osmosis?
Yeah. Brave, definitely. Yeah, I like that bravery by osmosis. It's kind of you know, it's you know, when I hear people share some really difficult, vulnerable stuff, that's when I feel like I connect with other people the most because I'm like, wow, you know, it's really inspiring and motivating to see other people do that, and I think, wow, you know, I have a lot that I could share about as well, and for so long I was sort of you know, too scared to do that. And so I think there's definitely a lot of courage and a lot of strength in slowly peeling back the layers and trying to let go of years and years of built up shame and guilt and stuff like that. And
Yeah, that's it, Jono. That slow peeling back, it's tender work, but it's also deeply brave. And I think what you said there about connecting most when people share their hardest stuff. That's a kind of human truth that doesn't get said enough. We don't connect through perfection, we connect through the cracks. And it sounds like you're not just finding your voice, you're reclaiming it bit by bit in your own rhythm. Do you think being neurodivergent changes how you experience or express vulnerability compared to what you see around you?
yes, I do. And I think I'm still kind of becoming comfortable with my neurodivergence and figuring it all out. And there's a certain vulnerability in being an openly neurodivergent person as well, and sort of trying to identify my needs and ask for them in a way that, you know, some people might be receptive of and other people might not. Other people just might not care. They might think I'm being difficult, or, you know, I suppose yeah, so it's one of those things where every different part of me, there's a vulnerability about it. So when you add up all those things together, there's a lot of vulnerability, but there's also a lot of strength. And so um I suppose, yeah, it's kind of a learning curve, you know, and it's something I'm still trying to like navigate my way through. And um yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think what you just said is beautifully honest, Jono. That layering of vulnerability, from neurodivergence to recovery to mental health, it's real. And yeah, it can feel like a lot to carry. But the way you're holding it with reflection and care, that's strength in action. Asking for your needs in a world that sometimes doesn't understand, that's a radical act of self respect. And yeah, it's scary when you don't know how people will respond, but that doesn't make the ask any less valid. I wonder, has there been a moment recently where advocating for your needs actually felt like a win, even a small one?
Yeah, so I mean, there was just a simple thing of asking somebody to turn a light off that was quite distracting towards me, and they did. And what I realized afterwards was, you know, just that small thing of me asking and the person accommodating by switching the light off, it was something that was kind of common courtesy or common decency, where, you know, if I was a customer who someone who had autism or not.
That's such a clear, powerful moment, Jono. It carries so much meaning underneath. Noticed what you needed, you voiced it, and someone met you there. That's what respect and connection can look like in real time. I'm curious, how did you feel afterward?
Yeah, I suppose I realized that, you know, sometimes like small things make a big difference. So like, yeah, it doesn't have to be a big problem. Like there's simple small steps can make a big difference. Massive thanks to ChatGPT for that conversation.
Imagine recovery transformed, where your challenges become your greatest strengths. At Trinity College Dublin this May, a revolution in healing awaits. Recovery Reimagined 2025 brings together global pioneers and those with lived experience to redefine what's possible on your recovery journey. This isn't just another conference, it's a movement created by and for the recovery community, with innovative workshops, powerful keynotes, and life-changing connections. Whether streaming the event or joining us live in the historic halls of Trinity, you'll discover breakthrough approaches to trauma, addiction, and emotional sobriety. Recovery Reimagined 2025, May 23rd to May 25th. Join us and discover what healing can truly become. Registration links are in the video description below. That's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please make sure to like and follow and share this episode with all your friends and family. And don't forget to give me a follow on social media at Jonos_journey, or check out my new website, anythingispossible.com, with an extra S. And until next time, remember, anything is possible.